Hello and welcome to Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Shane Brophy and Nenagh Kiladangan. And I suppose we all know that the big thing to talk about this week is the Tipperary Miners winning the All-Ireland title on Sunday at Nolan Park against Offaly, last-ditch winner. We're joined by Tip Miner coach Cormac McGrath. Cormac, we'll have to start with you. How have the last couple of days been?
Yeah, they've been brilliant now. I suppose bit of a come down from the excitement in Nolan Park. Getting back to reality isn't easy. But knowing that you're an All-Ireland champion makes it a whole lot easier anyway.
Yeah. Shane, you were down there. What was it like?
It was brilliant. Like, just the whole day, even from me arriving at 11:15 there and people queuing outside the turnstiles. They had a big smack off the 2013 qualifier. Like, just the whole occasion. And I think, look, there's valid arguments for saying it should be in Croke Park, but I think, I don't know, I just think it's special having that. It's special having that game on its own in a venue where it's just minors only. There's no Limerick or Kilkenny or Galway fans coming in and getting in your way and half reading the programme while the match is on. All 20,000 people were there for the minors, and it was brilliant. And it was just chaos at the end. I remember watching that last 30 seconds after the goal, and down in the sideline, Jesus, there was selectors going here, there, and everywhere, and lads coming on the field in the final. It was bedlam. Like, it was, it's something I'll never forget anyway. Just the manner of the whole thing as well. And look, the joy for us, but the cruelty for Offaly as well. Like, it was just like they hurled so well in the day, and or just to be caught like that was incredible.
Yeah, two brilliant teams in that final there. Cormac, talk to us, paint the picture for us there. The last minute or so, tipped down by a couple of points, you know, obviously trying to get into position. The free happens. Paint the picture of what you saw and what you're thinking as this is going on.
Yeah, I suppose in fairness to Sam Rowan, even before the free, he wins a great ball after Darren McCarthy put a great tackle in, and Sam Rowan wins that ball, and he goes to take the man on. I suppose that was the big thing, to win the free, rather than just taking on the back foot and just getting rid of the ball. For a young chap, he took great responsibility on there through the free. I suppose then you're going to the free, and there's probably a lot of lads looking around who's going to take it on the field. And in fairness to Paddy Phelan there from Upperchurch, he's a great young lad. He steps over the free. And in fairness to him, Paddy McCormack, without a doubt, deserves so much credit. But the ball Paddy Phelan puts in is absolutely unbelievable. Like, we talked about the Pro-Am there and there this week, lads pitching onto the green. He absolutely put it into perfection. And that he gave the forwards every chance to get a flick on it. And after that, Paddy McCormack was just magic, absolutely magic. But I suppose from our side looking in, time probably went still for a few minutes, or for what felt like a few minutes, as the ball just floated through the air. It was, it was amazing. But I suppose that the big thing after the goal, Shane, I would find is that there was still another puck out. In fairness to the referee, he gave Offaly another puck out, and Jack Quinlan, in all the videos going on Twitter, you don't see it. You just see young Jamie Armour from the Brackens winning the ball, but Jack Quinlan, our cornerback, comes and he snaps the ball over two Offaly lads' heads, and he brings the ball out. Like, if he was to miss that ball and go in behind him and let it beat him, you're looking at a ref going, oh, maybe a free here to draw the game. So it was just, yeah, amazing stuff, really.
Yeah, Shane, when that final whistle went, I suppose all professional decorum went out the window and you were roaring in the press box.
Oh no, I was actually very calm. I was sort of stunned for about 5 minutes. My hands were sort of shaking. No, it was there was a couple of Offaly journalists around me, and I felt for them, because I even though Tip had been through this before and they come from behind and stuff, it was just that I didn't see the comeback coming this time, because I just thought there was passages in the Galway and the Clare matches where Tip had periods of dominance, and you say, okay, if they get 5 minutes, they'll do it. But I thought Offaly the match was sort of played on their terms for the 52 minutes up to the red card. And just after that, I suppose the combination, they probably sat back a small bit, even though they had played with a sweeper for a lot of the game. I suppose they became a bit more cautious. And then, as Tip did against Clare, like, they hurled freer when they got to 14 men. Lads started to say, look, we've got to go for it here. There's nothing to lose. Like, we're 6 down. We got to go. And like, Sam O'Farrell particularly led brilliantly from that halfback. the half-back line really came out with ball after ball in that last 10 minutes. And I suppose it was a 1-5 to a point in that last 10 minutes. It was comprehensive, that last 10 minutes. It's just a pity that where was it the rest situation? But look, you have to give credit for Offaly. Like they were, I suppose, full value for the 6-point lead up to then. And I do think the experience they had of the Leinster final and the big crowd and the noise, I think that definitely helped them. I think maybe it slightly spooked some of our lads. I don't know what Cormac would think. I just saw Offaly coped with the whole occasion and the atmosphere an awful lot better than our lads did.
Yeah, you talked to us about that, Cormac. What you walked into compared with the games you played previously, where there would have been far smaller crowds, big occasions, penalty shootouts, and so on. But compared to what you walked into at Nolan Park.
Yeah, I suppose. Look, having Woody as the manager, his preparation is unbelievable. He's very, very meticulous. So we got to train the stadium the week or two before it, and we would use the PA system to try and generate some noise, but you just can't mimic the atmosphere that was down in Nolan Park. We referenced 2013 there beforehand, and I suppose Woody and Foxy both played in that game, and they were able to talk to the players about what kind of atmosphere they were going to walk into. But again, you can talk about it, you can try and prepare preparations, and it's very hard to mimic it. I suppose, Offaly, there was a fine Tip crowd there, by the way, as well. There was a fine Offaly crowd, but to see all the Tip crowd there was unreal. So, credit where credit's due to the Tip supporters too. But maybe our lads weren't used to that, maybe, and the Offaly guys were a bit more used to it, and Offaly had a huge momentum in that coming into it. And look, I think it was evident too, finishing up the game, and something that we probably spoke about leading up to the game in our video work and kind of bit of research done on Offaly and watching them multiple times. They expend a lot of energy in the way they play. Every puck out the whole half forward line, go back to field. They make it very, very congested for breaks, and they work really, really hard, in fairness to the young lads. And we had noticed that probably due to expending all the energy, they were kind of cramping in near end of games. So all for the few weeks we told our lads that, the game was never going to be over until it was over. That we stay in the game. Our lads were probably the fittest lads in the competition, no doubt, down to Angelo Walsh. And we kept going. They were starting to make a lot of subs at that time. They sucked back the field quite a lot, maybe a bit of finishing line syndrome. And I suppose our lads got a bit more space around the middle. And we hit pints with Sam O'Farrell, Adam Daly, Aaron O'Halloran hit a great pint. And I suppose when they did suck back that bit, it probably invited us onto them a bit more.
Shane, from my point of view, there's a lot of talk from Offaly that they should have had a late free just before Tip had the free that was lofted in for the goal. Look, I mean, sometimes they're given, sometimes they're not. To be honest, I thought there was too much going down handy throughout the game, and the referee got sick of it anyway. But did you think? Obviously, it sounds like Cormac didn't think the game was ever gone. But 6 points down, obviously Damien Corbett getting sent off also. Did you think it was gone?
Realistically, I did, because I unlike the Clare and the Galway matches, I just thought there was no 5 or 10 minute burst even earlier in the game where I thought Tip, if they get it right, they were coming. But just even when Tip were 7-6 up in the middle of the first half, I always felt Galway or Offaly were hurling that better. They probably had wasted a few chances maybe to being a couple of points up. And look, they could have had a second goal just on half time. I can't remember who got back to make a hook. I don't know if Cormac, you probably watched it back. Was it Cahill English? Yeah, I knew it was one of the taller lads. I wasn't sure. Like that would have, I'd say that could have been a bridge too far at that stage. It was, there's no doubt about it. But there's no doubt. The fitness of, I agree with Cormac, the fitness of the boys was incredible. To go, and then the subs coming on, every one of them made an impact. Jamie Orman, Darren McCarthy had a great second half, Sam Rowan, Paddy Phelan. I suppose, look, it was the story of Tipperary, the whole championship. It was a 20-player game. The guys came on, made the impact, and as you say, I was just wondering about the way Offaly set up. They had Rory Kelly more or less as their sweeper, and it looked like Kieran Foley was our spare man. I thought maybe that was the first 15 minutes. I thought maybe he was the one that looked a little freer, but there was probably a few chances there. You were going direct into puckouts. Was there an element there where maybe Kieran was there, but the boys couldn't pick him out? Or what was it from? What were you thinking? What were you seeing in that first half?
Yeah, I suppose from doing the work on Offaly, again, look, they're known for having their high work rate.
Yeah.
And like, I suppose in the cauldron of a game like that, in fairness to the young lads, it might look like that puck out is on.
Yeah.
But the Offaly guys were all year, they were getting big turnovers on those puck outs.
Yeah, they got one on, I think they got one on Sam O'Farrell that ended up in a point for them, yeah.
That's right. That maybe, look, that might spook the young lads a small little bit, but like, credit where credit's due in the second half, in fairness to Owen Horgan, like, he stood up, he pinged some great puck outs to Chris O'Donnell there in the 4 box. He hit some to the wing back, got some to Sam. And like, to still have the nerve to do that, like in the second half down a bit. And I suppose that could have been a huge change in our game too, because they were winning a lot of breaking ball. You mentioned Darren McCarthy. When Darren came on, he got to a lot of breaking ball as well. That was like, in the nuts and bolts, you talk about tactics or you talk about this and that. But in the first half, they were getting bodies where the ball were, and they were working hard. And look, it was working for them, and we were trying to find it hard to get a foothold in the game. But the boys stuck at it, and they came through.
Yeah, like they were there. I think the points we got in the first half were under ferocious pressure. Like it's a long time since I've seen backs as touch tight as they were.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. Now, like, or in fairness to our backs, like, and again to Jack Quinlan, I know Adam Screen had a great game. He's a talented young fella. There's no doubt about it. But Jack got a yellow on his very first tackle.
Yeah, I thought that was harsh.
Yeah, I thought it was very harsh, because like, as a young lad, then like, he's not going to go diving into the next 2 or 3 balls being on a yellow and not in the final. So Jack maybe stood off it, just a taste. But again, as I said, that last puck out, it was Jack Quinlan that came and snapped the ball. And like, all the young lads, I know I'm naming some names, but like, just that kind of character, you can't coach that character. Like, they were just great young lads.
Cormac, what did you make of the incident where Damien Corbett got the red card? I suppose in a strange sort of way, it probably did allow Tipperary to come back. The fact that it didn't end up being a goal, and also a great save by Owen Horgan when the player continued on running with it. But must be very tough for a young lad. He's come in, he scored 6 points. He's obviously doing a foul. He's throwing the hurley or whatever, and I think everyone kind of accepted that he has to go for it. But tough on the young lad all the same. Yeah,
big time. Now, in fairness to Damien, like, we had actually brought him out into the half forward, and at that point, because he was actually one of the forwards. He was making a stick. He was very busy. He was very sharp. So we brought him out to try and win a few breaking balls. So that's probably the reason that he was that far back the field, tracking back. Yeah, look, I suppose it was just a kind of a rush of blood to him, like, but I know he was a good bit outside the 14, like, and in fairness to the referee, he still gave an advantage to the Offaly player who was in position. He still had 4 or 5 or 3 or 4 steps in to get a shot on goal, and Owen Horgan came out and made a great save. Like, because I was saying, myself included in the goals, you might come out and turn your arse to it, but like, he came out, he stayed strong, he stayed tall, he made the save. If that goal goes in, I think we're down 8 points down a man. I don't know what I'd be talking to you today. Like, so in fairness to Owen, it was a great save. But like, the ref did give the advantage. The goal opportunity was still there, but the boys kept it out.
How pleased are you that different lads are standing up every day? Like, some days, Tom Delaney is shooting the lights out. Other days, Paddy McCormick is coming with a late burst in the game to do something magical, whether it's Munster final or the All-Ireland. But like, your bench has been so strong all year, but that must be very pleasing that different lads are stepping up when you need it.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I suppose, look, Woody always speak about the collective, and like, I know a lot of managers have these cliches, but like, he means it, like, and we all meant it, and the players bought into it. As you said yourself, we went from Tom getting 112 against Waterford to Clare probably holding him fairly well, but in doing that, they probably had their centre back then a little bit further on Tom, which meant more space in the half forward line when we brought Paddy out. And then another day, someone came minding Paddy. At the very first day blowing Waterford, it was Damien Corbett again. I think Damien got 1 7 or 8 that day. You had Joe Egan, you had lots of players. Adam Daly and Kieran Foley got some great scores from midfield, because they were dropping a midfielder back to mind, the likes of your Paddy McCormick, your Tom Delaney. So having that strength and depth is absolutely massive, because it makes space for someone else, and that was brilliant for us.
Yeah, Shane, any other thoughts on the game that stick out to you?
Yeah, just on the red card. Look, I'm sure. Look, I'd say there's if he Damien hurls for the next 20-25 years, I'd say he'll never throw the hurley again. Like, it was just one of those, a rush of blood. Look, it happens when you're desperate, really. And look, it ended up
probably
working.
throwing it to hook the man, and it ended up going a bit higher than he meant.
If he throws it, it's a yellow card. It's but once he connects it's a man. It's technically a striking offence, and it's a red card. Like, so look, it's just it was sure. Like, there's no way he probably went to try and connect with his hurley and to stop the strike. Like, he didn't. There's no way he intentionally went for his head. Like, so just that we've seen it. We've seen it all. It's probably the first time I've ever seen the hurley connect with somebody. I think you always see it flying, and it's the John Tennyson one is the one to remember from 2010. Yeah. Like, so, but no, look, I think when you're always looking for the future and you have a good minor team, especially the one that wins, you say, God, there's talent there. But I think the important characteristic for me is from this group of lads is the character in them. Like, going to under 20 and up to senior, that these guys are made of substance, that they'll tough it out. Even in game, like, they can win games where maybe they're being outplayed, but they can also win games where they're playing like Galway, where they're on the front foot, they're imposing their will in the game, they're playing quality hurling. And I think they like, that was so difficult on Sunday. Like, Offaly, as I said, they shut down Damien and Tom inside, and they also negated Joe Egan and Paddy McCormick in the air for a lot of the game, which meant that more or less Tips two ways of beating opposition. They more or less took us out of the game, and like, to still emerge as winners like that was incredible.
Yeah, Cormac, can I ask you about the trials and tribulations you've gone through this year? I mean, last year wasn't brilliant, and then to go through like penalty shootouts to get the late winner against Galway after they'd gone ahead. What's it been like? And will you start off with that penalty shootout? What was that like against Clare?
Yeah, geez, that was when the game was kind of over, extra time, we were kind of looking around. Everyone's kind of going, is it really going to go to penalties? And then they're saying, yeah, it's going. And then everyone is finding out the different rules about naming 5 penalty takers and all this kind of stuff. Like, and you're just standing on the sideline with everybody, and you're looking down the Clare crowd, and it's like you've like an outer body experience nearly going. It's kind of a surreal moment, really, like, because it's so rare in the GAA. But I suppose, look, that day as well, I know the linesman called the Clare goalie was off the line there on the ball. Little break like that, maybe another linesman doesn't call that. So, but the big thing we'd always believe in, like, is that you do make your own luck. Like, it's grand saying that, Offaly would say we were very lucky at the end. But as Shane rightly pointed out, we scored 1-5 to a point in those last 5 minutes. So we done a lot of hurling to get us to Paddy McCormick's point. But yeah, all year, I suppose, we had that extreme excitement against Clare. And even our first day, Shane, I don't know if you recall, below in Dungarvan, we were actually up 2 points. And they got a free a little bit further out than we did, Waterford, and they lobbed it in. And Patrick Toomey came. He met the ball as sweet as Paddy McCormick did, and it just hit Tyke Sheehan on the right shoulder and went out for 65. Like, it was just,
yeah.
I suppose you do get these little snippets throughout the year, but if you're well prepared, if you keep yourself in games, you do make your own luck.
Yeah. I know, Cormac, you were there last year. Like, what can you contrast? Maybe just, I know people would say, look, last year, okay, we had the COVID excuse, like yourself and James and all the selectors are coming in late, and you could say, okay, every county was in the same boat. What made this year's preparation so much different, do you think, from last year? Because, like, I still think, looking at the players we had last year, they're a talented bunch, but maybe circumstances didn't allow them to show their true selves.
Yeah, I suppose a massive learning for me anyway, and I suppose the lads might back it up. And I know, even speaking to John Sheedy one day in the stadium there with the seniors, and it's the difference in the first year and second year. One difference anyway is first year had to be on a trial basis. So you're bringing young lads in for trials, and trials are trials. The primary game have trials. Like, they're almost. It's very hard for young lads to perform. They can be nervous and all that. While this year we got to any game that was happening early in the county, between Brendan Ferris in the south, we had Ray Dial, Woody, Foxy, myself, Damien Ryan, and multiple other people that were helping in the background, getting to schools games, clubs games. So, like, you're getting a better look at the players, like, and they don't know their performance. So that was one massive difference anyway. Obviously the one of the more obvious one is just a little bit more time in the preparation. the lads got to do their strength and conditioning work with Angelo and all their fitness work and nutritional work with Megs Hanley. Like, so all those little things in the preparation. And I suppose the final one would be just knowing your players. Like, it sounds so simple, but just knowing your players and knowing a bit of background about them. Like, because everyone has different stuff at home and different things and different interests and different things that, you know, one lad needs the hand around the shoulder, the other lad needs the proverbial kick in the behind, like, you know. So knowing your players, it sounds simple, but it is a massive thing, especially with young lads, because like young lads are, and that's what they were, like, you know, 16, 17-year-olds. So like getting to know them was a massive part of it.
Yeah, I think it's like I did a piece for the paper last week with Kevin Halley and Paddy Malone. I think it's great vindication for those guys and the game's development remit. Because, like, look, we were all there at the 22nd of May and Tip loose to Cork and say our underage structures are terrible. Like, this is why we're going bad at senior. Like, you always hear that nonsense when Tip have a bad year at anything, and it's circumstantial. Every county's going to have a down year. Like, and I think from what I'm hearing, like, this group of 17s, and you throw in the Celtic Challenge team, and like I even look the minor footballers this year, like, that's the guts of 100 players playing to a high level across both codes. That says a lot for what our underage development is doing. You think that the Satanta thing, which we're only in year one of, like, you think when that fully gets going, you think when this year's under 14s are starting with Satanta, what will they be like when they get out to under 17 in 3 years' time? Like, so, and like, it was great. Like, it was to see so many clubs spread out around the county, from Bursakane down to Ballyluby. Like, it's incredible for them. And I think the two probably the strongest underage clubs for the under 17 level are Durlas Og and Holy Cross, and neither of them had a player in the starting 15. It just shows you the depth of talent there is around the county.
Yeah, Paul Tierney's saying here, I think there's up to 14 players from this minor team going again next year. Massive, all the different clubs. Is it as many as that, Cormac, that are underage again next year? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, I think it might be 12, maybe 11 or 12. I'm not sure if it's exactly 14, but we got a period there during the Celtic Challenge where the boys were playing the Celtic Challenge final, which Tipperary won as well. Like, and that was a great victory. Like, that had a lot of our panel, but a lot of other 17-year-olds in Tipperary that were good enough to go win in All Ireland, and they won that at a canter. In fairness to the young lads, you know, credit where credit's due. But during that period, we would have brought in maybe another 6 under 16s into training for 3 or 4 nights, and like, it's given them a taste for next year. And like, in fairness to those 6 chaps that came in, they didn't look out of place during the training session. So yeah, look, I suppose back to your point, the other Shane there, like, a lot of it is controlling the narrative, isn't it? Like, the narrative that suits the opinion that person wants to make. They want to say tip structures are this, tip structures are that, but you can't really talk about the past. You talk about the present. The county board do have the Satanta in place now. Really good structures, really good fellas over all the development squads, like hurling and football. And like, I know even from reading Twitter at the weekend, at half time, we were getting questioned how fit our lads were.
Yeah.
And then at the end, we were told we were the fittest team in the country. So the control and the narrative is the big thing, isn't it?
Shane, how pleasing was it to hear Slieve Naman rolling around Nolan Park?
Brilliant. Like, I tell you, that was long overdue. Amount of league matches and championship matches, you're down there and you're coming away with a tail between your legs, and it was sweet. I didn't actually read. Seemingly, initially, it started playing the Offaly Rovers. So obviously the PA guy with maybe 10, 15 minutes to go had the CD in for Offaly ready to go. And he started playing, he realised, okay, I've got to change it. So it was nice. Like, it was just a great atmosphere after the match ended. And there's just something I wanted to touch with Cormac. I know, look, assuming you're in place for next year, you'll be staying on with the next group of 17s coming through. Like, I'd be wondering, like, something we chatted with Shane with a few weeks ago. It's like, you know, the likes of maybe the Paddy McCormick's, and like, he's in Burris Lee, you know, his probably development is going to be fine. But I look at like the Jack Quinlans and the Chris O'Donnell, they're going back to junior clubs now, and that maybe like Brendan Cummins is not going to take everybody from that under 17 group next year, because I think he's a lot of guys still eligible for 20s, but that the Tom Delaney's and the Chris O'Donnell's, that they're their development isn't that lost. And I'm not disrespecting their clubs are going back to. It's just that they're at junior level, if you know what I mean, and that they don't fall too far before they're brought back into the under-20s, if you know what I mean.
Oh no, look, that's reality. It's a really good point. In fairness to all those young lads and all those clubs, in fairness to those clubs, they're the clubs that got him ready, got all those boys ready for minors, so those clubs know what they're doing as well. But look, they are probably not too dissimilar to a few years ago, like when Sheedy was over Tip back in 2007, 2008, my own brother or even Conor Mahoney and Road Newport, they were intermediate clubs. So there's probably an onus on the individual themselves, like what they're doing to keep going. Like maybe as a county, I don't know how this Croke Park convention is going to go as regards under 19, like, but as a county, like, could we do something there? Could we have a Tip under 20 panel and whoever's over them, and they'd have, I think Brendan did have something like this in Tipperary last year, in fairness to him, and a number of players that were in a development squad, like that were still doing strength and conditioning. And I know there's no competition, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Dublin and I believe Limerick are running something similar. So there is games to be had there, but it's about having that drive in the county and keeping it going, which I think Tipperary do have. So maybe that's something that could be looked into.
Yeah, Tipperary, or even in Dublin, I'd see it now and again that development panels tipping away there might even be around under 23 level. Maybe there's other ones too. Cormac, do you like the notion of under 19 as that extra bridge between minor, which is now under 17, and senior? Or are you happy with 20s?
I suppose on a personal level, and like with a lot of people, I suppose 18 and 21 was probably the way it probably should have been. A little bit typical of GAA. If it's not broken, they try and fix it. But that is what it is, and they went with under 17 or 20. I do think that there should be two age groups, is what I'm basically saying, Shane. I think if they bring it back to under 19, only one age group, the gap is just too big. Like to bring a chap out at 20, like you're going to bring a chap out at 20, like, and put him in beside Sean Finn, Aaron Gillan, Rod Hegarty, these guys, like they're like, I think Limerick, everyone is trying to copy the way they hurl, but maybe we should look at the way they prepare those teams in regards. Development was massive, and they developed them the whole way up, and they didn't throw them in too soon. So I think it should be 18, 21, and if it's not that, it should be 17 and 20. Definitely not only one age group, because these lads need to be playing at a high level. Like with Shane, I know Shane Brophy mentioned some other guys there, that the likes of our Jack Quinlan's and our Chris's. If there's only under 19, like where do those guys go from 20 on, And like, I think there should be two age groups, because it keeps developing, it keeps them hurling at a high level. And then they come 21, 22, then look, not everyone makes it, but you have to give every player a best possible chance.
Yeah. So like the style of hurling you played this year, I thought was very good to watch. How long did it take you to sort of get to a stage whereby you were giving a message to the players and then ultimately they were carrying it out? Because, you can't just be like the olden days of just let the ball do the work and just hit it blindly up the field. But how long did it take to stick?
I suppose this goes back to your point, Shane. What was different in one year and the other is that, like, there's lots of boxes to tick and prepare in a team. While last year you were probably trying to cram in fitness, skill work, and game-based stuff. And while this year we had a bit more time, like we could start with the fitness, start bringing in the skill-based stuff, then start drip feeding in more game-based stuff, where we get into the summer where it became majority game-based stuff. So with all that time, you got this more time to instill a style, if you will. And look, like any team at the moment, there's other stuff you have to do too. Like there's video analysis work on opposition, and a lot of video analysis work on ourselves. Like when we did play the challenge matches, it wasn't just a case saying that it's great to give them an old game. Like that day is gone. Like you kind of have to record it. You got to break it down with the stats, and then you got to break it down with the video work and say, look, that time you did this, it would have been better if you done that. And like the beauty of video work is it takes opinion out of it. It's cold hard facts. And in a big group, everyone is learning from that day. So it might have been me who made the mistake today, but Shane is learning from it and you're learning from it. And so it wasn't just on the field. It does take all the resources at your disposal, really.
I suppose, Cormac, before we let you go, we might just get your thoughts, I suppose, on Saturday night and Templederry's loss, just where we're going to move into the club section now. Disappointing result. Was it a disappointing performance from your end, or did Nenagh do something different that maybe caught you unawares?
I suppose, look, something similar happened to us at Tipperary last year. Borsallee probably gave us a small bit of a lesson there in Dala. And in fairness to the Tipperary players, they learned a lot from it. So we're in the same position again. Look, don't really like excuses. You go out, if you lose, you lose, and you got to get better at it. And that's what we're going to do. But there probably was a few small things. Look, the step up to Dan Breen this year was never going to be easy. Like the step up in all the grades, even from intermediate Seamus Serene to Dan Breen, it is massive. And I suppose we got a lot of that learning off of Nenagh. Look, Nenagh were flying. Johnny Kelly, as we all know, is very well, sets up teams very well. They're right good hurlers in Nenagh. They probably pulled us around the field. But look, there was other things too. We were missing a couple of guys, and unfortunately in Tipperary, the depth and chart mightn't be as big as your Thurles or your Nenah's. And we needed all those guys. And as I said, Shane, we can just learn from it. We can either feel sorry for ourselves for the rest of the year, or we can say, look, Tipperary have been looking to get up from the Seamus Serene for a number of years. Now they're up there. It's time to give it one good crack, and hopefully Nenagh gave us enough lessons to do that.
Yeah, God, you're in a great group. It's a local derby, so you start in Tipperary and drive to Thurles, and you're playing every team along their road. So.
Oh geez, I was looking at. I suppose, look, you have Boris and Sarah from the semi-finals last year. I suppose the only way the group could be even harder if it was a Kiladangan or Lockmore in it. But that's the beauty of the Tip Championship, and I suppose, in fairness to the county board, it's only going to make Tip hurling better. The teams are at a grade that we all probably belong in, and there might be a gap within those grades still, but you'll have that in every county. But at least it's really good games for every county, and that makes the hurlers better, which makes Tipperary County better.
Just before we let you go, just on Nenagh, did they look like a team that could beat Kiladangan on Sunday? Did they show enough?
Look, in fairness to Nenagh, I know they still have a lot of the players that were playing before, but they've a nice flicker in there. Like Shane Hennessy's brother Connor is a great job. He done a very good job in Shawnee Ryan. There was Killian Malone, Josh Keller. So they have a sprinkle of youth in and a bit of size and mobility, all that kind of stuff. Kiladangan, like with all the lads they're missing in America and stuff, they're just a club that you just kind of shake your head and go, how are you winning these matches? But with Egan back now, and they had Dan Hackett and George Hannigan, they're a well-prepared team, and they're winners. That Kiladangan team are winners. Being on in Clough-Jordan is probably an interesting factor. Clough-Jordan is probably the biggest field in North Tip, I would imagine. And it looked absolutely unbelievable there last Saturday. It was a carpet. If you couldn't hurl on that, then you had no excuses. So them big open spaces, will it suit the Kiladangan brand of hurling? Possibly a little bit, but Nenagh have their structure now at the moment, and no better man than Egan to break it down. Probably tip Kiladangan, if I was to be honest.
Okay, well look, Cormac,
Cheers,
really appreciate you joining us, and congrats
lads.
again on the glorious win there the other day.
Thanks very much, lads. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so that's Cormac McGrath there. Shane, we will talk a little bit more about club, definitely, but do you think Offaly were hard done by the other day in terms of that free? Because I don't know, did we labour much on that?
I thought I remember. I have a pretty good memory. I remember that moment in time thinking that's a free out. I did think it's before we got our free. I thought that was a free. I know if you look back in the video, there's you see a lot of those frees given in games where there was a bit of a shoulder, and I think that the thing for me is that it wasn't a full trip, but there was definitely a sort of a bit of a leg went out there too, and if the way I look at these things is if the shoe was on the other foot, would we be looking for a free out? You can bloody damn sure we'd be looking for a free out. So, look, the break went our way on the day. Like I did remember, I would say, like I remember thinking at that moment of time, God, that was probably a free out for Offaly before we got a free in.
Yeah, I just kind of feel in general in both codes of GAA, there's too many soft frees. I've been saying this a lot lately. And I think the referee got a little bit sick of it the other day, which I was delighted to see. I thought in the second All-Ireland senior semi-final, Thomas Walsh got a bit sick of it too, and he stopped blowing for them as well. So it's convenient for me to say that now. But I also think you could make a case that Tipperary didn't deserve the free that was ultimately lofted in, because, the hurley went around stupidly, but there was sort of making the most of it within that. Now, look, again, I'm delighted to see that Tipperary went on and did it. But just in a broader point, it's a physical game. We don't need to blow for frees every time someone goes into contact, puts their arm up in the air, and the referee goes, because I think if the referees stop blowing for that, we're actually going to get a far more free-flowing game.
Oh, definitely. And sure, like, there was the game on Sunday. Like you have people going to matches and they're looking for the ref to blow for every free. Like if that happens, like you just have a free contest. There's no openness at all. So like, look, refs are human. Like they're gonna spot some things. They're not going to spot others. They're going to deem something as a free for your team that maybe looks soft to another person's eyes. Look, just the way it is. Look, the break went on Tips Day. Like I'd have no qualms to say otherwise. I would think if we were in their Offaly shoes and we were 2 points up and we thought we could have a free out, we'd be roaring for it too.
Yeah, look, it's a great young Offaly team, and pretty obviously there's some good players coming out of it. 40 years on from Seamus Darby's push into the back that wasn't blown for. Maybe this happens. So these things happen to all counties.
Cruel, and it's mad to think that Leo O'Connor's been involved in this twice on the losing side. Like he was played for Limerick in that 94 final where they got this blitzed at the end. It's just like in fairness to him, he knows how to prepare a team. And I think there's no doubt that Offaly had this team identify a few years ago. Like I think the next year's Offaly minors, like I think they have a lot of the guys up to the age. So like like a team like Offaly, a county like Offaly, whose depth of playing talent wouldn't be as deep as others. Like they have to bring as many of them along as in one group as possible. Like so, and like be interesting to see if it's under 19 or under 20 the next time this group of players meet up. Like how I would think probably Offaly will carry more over, because I think like Tip can dip into the Kelty Challenge group over the next 2 or 3 years. Like some guys that maybe, like if it is Brendan Cummins who's still the manager in 2 or 3 years time, he will look at for a different maybe type of player than maybe what James Woodlock and his selectors are looking at. They'll probably be out the same group, but they might see some of the subs or maybe some of the extended panel will maybe have kicked on a bit more in that time.
Yeah, okay, let's move back to the North Tip Championship over the weekend. As most people know already, Kiladangan and Nenagh Kiladangan are going to meet in the North Final this weekend. But Kiladangan beat Toomevara 220 to 216. Sean Hayes scored 2-2, and obviously you were singing his praises a lot in recent times. But it was a late scoring burst that got Kiladangan through. It wasn't exactly, just holding them at arm's length the whole way through.
No, it was. This was a really good game. Now, really top class game of club hurling, and the Kiladangan remind me a lot of Limerick. Like they don't panic. Like when Toomevara went ahead for the first time. I think it was about 3 minutes of normal time to go, and you think, God, Toomer timing this perfectly, but no, Kiladangan. I think David Sweeney got down and got the equaliser. Fergal Hayes, when he came off the bench, he rarely scores for Kiladangan. He scores a beauty of a long ranger to put them in front, and then Sean Hayes wraps it up in injury time with a clinical finish for his second goal, his third goal in 2 games. So look, I suppose when you have that experience of your winning so many North Championships, being county champions 2 years ago, you don't panic, and even without the players they're missing, it's just a credit to them. Like not like the Tip minors, just a composure down the stretch. Like you think, okay, Toomevara looked like they timed it perfectly, but they're a very, very hard team to beat. Kiladangan, you really like Tip minors. The only time you want to be ahead of them is at the final whistle, because there's always a fair chance they'll come back and get another score against you.
Yeah, but they've had a bit of a trend of letting teams back into games, Killarwan and now Toomevara. So is that an element of a concern going into the North Final, or do you think it doesnn't seem to matter? They find a way anyway.
Yeah, I think it's something that their management will definitely be picking up on, because like it's going to catch them someday. Like they were 10 up on Killarwan, they were 7 up on Toom just before half time when Rory Brislan scored a goal from a 21. I suppose that just gave Toom the fill up they needed going into the break. Like and then they heard brilliant stuff in the second half. Like Alan Ryan was very good. Adam Hall came off the bench, got 3 points in play. And like this was a Toom team that were down Willie Coffey and Mark McCarthy. Mark got injured the week before against Borrisoleigh. So like he was a loss. But look, Alan Ryan and Adam Hall really stepped into the breach. And then Jack Delaney, who was so good against Borrisoleigh, was really quiet. Like Alan Flynn really kept him very, very quiet. So look, Toom will probably look back and think, God, if we had Jack firing, if we didn't have that injury, we might have been enough to get us through. But then you look at the Kiladangan team, and I suppose the players they're missing, and like, okay, David Sweeney and Fergal Hayes came off the bench in the second half, giving a bit of experience, which just shows you like the evenness of that Kiladangan panel. And then when you have the likes of like Sean Hayes 2-2, but I thought Brian Mullaney was their key forward in this one. 9 points, 4 from play, really, really good forward. Like I think this guy, there's a lot of bubbles O'Dwyer in him. He's a brilliant finisher. Like he's sort of low center of gravity. I don't think if he put his mind to it, would he make a Tipperary senior caliber player? I'm not. Does he have the hunger to go that far? But I just think he has. Look, he's in that Mullaney family tree right from Pat, like who hurled for Tip in the goals in the 70s. Like they're all able to hurl those Mullaney's. Like, so it'd be interesting what sort of if he has a very, very good club campaign and Colin Bonner came calling later in the year, would he say yes?
Yeah. Were you surprised that David Young's red card against Bursley was rescinded for that game?
I heard on Friday night that he was going for appeal, and obviously I thought initially myself looking at it live it didn't look good, but look, I couldn't say one way or the other whether it was accidental or not. I think they must have pleaded that it was accidental. Like, so, look, I'm not going to criticize him for appealing or the CCC for letting him off. Like that split second of what I saw live, it didn't look good, but maybe there were mitigating circumstances, and David was allowed play on the day.
Yeah. So
sure, Paddy and David would have hurled forget for Tip. I'm sure. I doubt there was any animosity. Maybe just purely accidental. Maybe it was just one of those things that looked worse than it actually did on the day.
Yeah, so Cormac already talked to us a little bit about Nennagh's 18 to 13 points win over Tipperary. Very emphatic for a finish. Adam Healy being man of the match.
Yeah, Jesus, I couldn't get over how dominant they were at half time. I tipped Tipperary last week. I thought if they brought the momentum in from last year, that they'd really go close in this one. But obviously, I suppose we saw last year, Tipperary were so good, but there was the one day, as Cormac referred to, against Bursley, where they were destroyed. Was it 20-25 points? And that if Nenagh get a run in you, they can do that to any team when Nenagh are on fire. And look, from 1 to 15, that's a very, very good Nenagh team. I thought in the two of the players, Cormac referred to Josh Keller and Killian Malone. They are two guys. They're young, but they have size, and they will get through a lot of that work rate. Or maybe it said over the years, maybe where when the game was in the fire, Nenagh struggled to have guys who would win the hard ball, and definitely in Keller, they have one of those. I know he's only 18 years of age, but I know from talking to Brendan Cummins this year, who had him in with the Tip under 20s, he's very high in this guy. And like if Brendan Cummins has an 18-year-old in his first year, and he's still 2 more years of under 20 eligibility to come, and if he's high in a guy like this, there's a bit of something about him. He's not going to get you a huge amount of scores, but he's going to set up an awful lot of them. And like if he's the one that's feeding the ball to Mikey Heffernan and Tommy Heffernan and Jake Morris, Nenagh are going to be filling their boots in attack. There's no doubt about it. And same for Killian Malone.
Yeah. How did Jake Morris go overall? 2-2 he scored, so I'd imagine pretty good.
Yeah, look, there's no doubt about it. Jake is a great finisher. And look, if he's given the service, he's going to fill his boots. Look, I think it's a fascinating final on Sunday. You think Kiladangan will be favourites, but I think this is the best forward line Kiladangan will have played this year. Like the Heffernans, the Morrises, guys that can finish. And like I suppose that's where Kiladangan are missing probably more of that experience in the Decky McGraths, the Dara Flannerys, the David Sweeneys. It'd be interesting to see if while Dara Butler and John O'Mara have done very little wrong so far in the championship as two of the newbies, will Kiladangan maybe go back to, okay, we'll start, if Circle Hayes and David Sweeney are able to go for the start, will they decide, God, will we err on the side of experience? Or I think maybe if you were Kiladangan looking long term, you'd say, look, no, we'll give Butler and O'Mara, we'll give them the game, we'll give them the start, they've earned their place, we have experience on the sideline to come in then. And like it's all about building for a county championship. While Kiladangan are looking for their 3 in a row, which would be great for them, their 9th title overall. It at the end of the day, it's all about building for the county championship. And no, Kiladangan are building a very, very good panel. But they said there's silverware on the line. It's a North final. They're not sniffed at. Plus, if you're in as even as that county championship is, if you win, you also have a ticket to the county knockout stages if your group stage doesn't go well. So like that'd be it's a nice safety net to have in your back pocket. And I think Kiladangan are in a group with Lockmore and with Brackens as well. Like, so you'd still fancy Kiladangan would finish in a top 2 in that group, but just to say if something went wrong and it didn't, you've ended up not being in that top 2, you'd want to have something in your back pocket just in case anything went wrong.
Yeah, and there's clearly a depth difference between, a bigger area like Nenagh versus Templederry. Like Templederry took a hefty enough beating and still, only used one substitute. That kind of, in a way, kind of says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think they had a wedding the night before. So, well, I'd say a lot of the lads minded themselves. We all know it's if you don't get to bread on time, it can hinder you the next day. So maybe that had some part to play, and maybe their sluggish start. They were better in the second half, but like the damage was done in the first half. So yeah, I think they've Drum and Inch in the first round of the county championship in 3 weeks' time, and be interesting if will they be playing a Drum team off a loss in a mid-final, or will there be a Drum team as league champions, as mid-champions, really flying it. So like that mid-final with them and JK Brackens will be a tasty affair on Sunday. Like you have 4 senior hurling divisional finals this weekend, so the club competition is really cranking up this weekend.
Yeah, and the Premier Intermediate semi-finals, Portrue beat Burgess 3-18 to 4-12. AJ Willis standing out there, and Ross Gray, they needed extra time to beat Silvermines 232 to 228. Geez, that's some high scoring affair.
Yeah, another 119 from Jason Ford and a losing effort. Like, he's hurling great stuff for the Mines. But yeah, this should be a great final. I would have said before the start, I would have said Ross Gray probably would have been most people's favourites to get to the final. Like, they're coming down from Dan Breen last year. Loads of talent there, just needed to be directed in, I suppose, just get it together. And look, Liam England is in there. Paul Delaney, the great tip warrior, great player, he's in there helping out too. So look, they've got to the final without Alan Tynan. Alan had to get an off-foot operation on that injury he sustained with Tip earlier on in the year. That in training, it was with UL? No, it was with UL, I think. So that sort of never gave him a chance to get in with Tip. So look, if Ross Gray can win it or get to the next stage of the championship with Tynan to come back, they'll be well set up. But look, they'll have it all to do with Port. Like, Port came from behind to beat Ballina, came from behind last weekend to beat Burgess. But look, it was a depleted Burgess, a team without Stephen Murray, without Mikey Ryan. Like, so look, it probably made the Port made it more hard work than it was. Probably maybe it takes a bit of shine off it, but will I be surprised if Portrue end up winning on Sunday? Absolutely not, because one thing, like those tip miners again, one team you don't want to be hanging in a game with 5 minutes to go, it's Portrue. Should be a really good final. Like, you have first North final in this competition's history, so both of them would like to win it. The Liam Devaney Cup is up for grabs. Like, to be a nice one for win from either side. And then like the senior, like, a lot of those groups in the Oreen Cup are toss-ups. Like, you could say any 2 from 4 can come out of them. So if you can have a knockout berth already secured, by God, you need to take the opportunity when it's there.
Yeah, the North Intermediate semi-finals were also on last weekend. Laura beat Moneygall 524 to 213. And Shannon Rovers needed penalties to beat Borriscane, winning 4-3 there. We'll start off with your own club. Laura, Bonner Maher playing very well there. But Moneygall, to be fair, were down some key players.
Yeah, they were. Like, I suppose I have to say it. I'm involved with the Laura team, so I'm not going to say an awful lot. But what Laura did, we did hurl very well. But that being said, Moneygall were without probably 3 of their best forwards in Sean Kennelly and the 2 Fogartys, Paddy and Joe. So look, they'll be stronger when those boys come back later in the summer. But I suppose for the game that was in it, look, Laura, we were very sharp. Like, on the day, 5-24 is good scoring. And look, there's no doubt about it. Laura got to an Oreen final 2 years ago. Last year they got relegated. I won't say it's the complete common denominator, but Bonner Maher was there 2 years ago. He wasn't there last year because of the Achilles, and just the whole forward line seemed to click a little bit better when he got 2-2, but his presence and hold up play for the rest of the guys around him. Look, his presence was huge. Like, so, good performance. And yeah, I was at the Rovers Borsa game on Friday night. Brilliant contest. Like, and I think it was my second ever penalty shootout watching live. Like the drama of it, and like I'm one of these people that's definitely a fan of the next score wins, but geez, that the second half of extra time was a tough watch. It was like Boris and Rovers lads were falling down all over the place, cramping. And you just think if it went on, maybe if even they got 5 or 10 minutes for the next score, like how many stoppages would there be? They'd just given everything. And in fairness to the Rovers, I thought they were the full value for the win. I thought they were the better team in normal time. Probably gave away a couple of poor goals from their point of view, that's particularly to allow Borsa back into the game. Like the Rovers were at 14-9 up at half time. Gave away a couple of goals early the second half to allow Borsa back into it. Then, of course, Boris went 6 points up with probably 5 or 6 minutes to go. And of course, the Rovers showed great character to come back and bring it into extra time, and then got a goal earlier to go ahead, and Borsa came back. So it was great for the back and forth sort of a game, like, and great win for the Rovers. Was like they would have been underdogs again. A lot of people would have fancied Borsa after a performance the previous week, and but like Borsa were down Conor Ryan. He's after heading off to America for a couple of weeks, so like he would have been a big loss to Borsa. So look, I'm sure. Look, if Boris get him back for the summer or for the county championship group stages, they'll be a tough outfit to beat. So look, it's a tasty local derby to have on Saturday week. And Nenagh was like a lot of people who wouldn't know, like a good chunk of the players in the Rovers and Laura would have played underage together with Laura Rovers Gales, like so. And John Flannery, the Rovers intermediate manager, I would have been with him with a Laura minor team about 2 or 3 years ago. So there'd be a lot of understanding between both sides, a lot of familiarity. So it'll be an interesting final next week. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, Bill Mullaney has stepped down as Tipperary Camogie manager after 5 years in charge, and in many ways feels just fairly unlucky. I mean, the record overall is 1 defeat to Waterford. I think that was the only defeat in Thurles out of the championship, and it was by virtue of Dublin beating Wexford, I think, at the weekend. But not a bad send-off to win in Cork, given Tip's record against them over the last few years.
Yeah, I think it was 14 years Tipperary hadn't beaten Cork in championship. You think the first time in God knows how long they've lowered the colours of the big three, and it's not enough to get to the knockout stage. So it just shows you, it sort of sums up their year that so near and yet so far. I probably would say it was a campaign where I don't think Tip took a step backwards, but they probably stood still while another team's probably caught up with them. And it wasn't last Saturday the damage was done. It was probably the first 2 games, particularly maybe the game against Clare at home, where they probably should have won that game rather than draw it. And I suppose if you get those 2 extra points that day, you're in the knockout stages. But look, they definitely hit their straps last weekend. Brilliant to win in Cork, win by a point, and of course miss out and score difference. Like, and you always thought if Dublin had the easier game against Wexford, whereas Tip to win, they were probably only going to beat Cork by 1, 2 or 3 points, and you were really probably hoping that Dublin or Waterford were going to lose at the weekend to allow Tip back in it. But look, Bill's been terrific. Like, he was minor manager in 2016, won an All-Ireland, then stepped up 28. Tip hadn't been in an All-Ireland semi-final for 10, 12 years till he got in there. They got there 4 years in a row. Just a bit of bad.
In some of those.
2020, like, you think, got to a league final, never happened because of COVID. Last year had probably Kilkenny beaten in a league semi-final, just maybe got a bit of white line. Like, they were so close in so many occasions to the big three. This year, last minute free against Galway probably denied them a league final place. Every time they got close to, like, people might say, oh, league final would have been huge. Like, when you've been on teams, Shane, yourself, like, getting to a final is massive. It just gives you a bit more confidence, belief, experience. And you think if Tipperary got able to taste one of those final occasions, it would have been huge for them. Look, this year was difficult. Karen Kennedy was missing, Orla Dwyer wasn't able to commit. There was a couple of girls that they had in the league decided to go to America for the championship. And look, I think personally, this is a great job for somebody to come into next year because they're so close. I think it's if they could get the right person. Maybe I'm not sure whether some of the selectors would be interested in it, but I think I'd love to see Liam Sheedy get this job now because I just know Liam's daughter Aisling is vice captain of the junior team, the second team. So look, he has a bit of a knowledge of the scene, and you think wouldn't a figurehead like that, a lot like Michael Cleary in 1999 when he came in, and him and Colin Bonner and Rémi Ryan they brought that professionalism and knowledge and know-how that brought them that next step of the way. I just think maybe he was no interest. I just think that sort of her personality might be just like if you were a Camogie player in Tip that was wishy-washy about committing, and you think, God, I'd love to get involved with him to see what would he do. I think and look at the caliber. Look, Dave Corker after getting Davy Fitz in, like you look the growth of Camogie. I think whether he'd be interested, I don't know, but I just think I would have thought for him it'd be a brilliant job maybe to come in. It wouldn't. It's great to say he won 2 All-Irelands with Tip as the senior manager. Imagine if he come along and did a job as senior. It's a name I'm throwing out there. Maybe I'm wide in America. I just think as a figurehead, I think he'd be great if they were able to get him.
It'd be interesting then if Tip Cork next year, assuming Davy Fitz would still be involved. That'd be you added a bit of luster to it there. But whoever comes in next, I do agree with you. Like if all of the players can be brought back in for next season, or the vast majority, and the right person is in charge, there's potentially the sky is the limit for that team. Any final thoughts before we finish up?
I suppose you were in Crow Park at the weekend. I suppose the senior semi-final. I actually, I didn't get to see Sunday's game. I saw the first half of Kilkenny and Clare, and look, you give Kilkenny all the credit in the world, but Jesus, 24 wides, Jesus, how does that happen? How does that happen in a semi-final? You think if Clare score half of them, the game is a contest. Clare didn't do an awful lot wrong, except the radar was completely off.
There's 24 wides, but in total, if you include drop shots and shot saves and all that, they had 35 misses overall.
Yeah,
it was crazy stuff. It was just crazy. The players obviously had their minds must have been, I don't know. They just had a collective meltdown inside the 4 lines. And I think Brian Lohan got an awful lot wrong outside the 4 lines. Kilkenny got everything right. They got their matchups right. Their shooting was very accurate throughout. They played the game on their terms. They managed to isolate TJ Reid and put high ball on top of him. And it just put Clare at 6s and 7s. They got their matchups wrong. They got their replacement of John Conlon wrong. They were putting every ball to the clouds. Players just... look, hugely.
It looked like a Clare team that were mentally spent after the Munster final. And I did worry that Clare are a team that don't win an awful lot of Munster championships, but even the talk before the Munster final, it was as if this Munster final was an All Ireland. And I sort of said to myself, win or lose, how can Clare have more in the tank for later on the championship? You could think that against Wexford, they got away with it, and then of course you can't get away with it. Kilkenny, they're just going to bury you, if they smell any vulnerability.
Yeah, look, there's a million and one different reasons, but I just think you can't get away from the fact that players on the field, you have the ball in your hand, make the right decision, do the right thing. Maybe I won't put a rocket of a high ball on top of Ian Galvin and David Reedy.
Oh, Jesus!
So maybe I'll run the ball short and try and get it to. I don't know, Tony Kelly, for example. So on the field, you just, all these lads are playing for years and years and years, and they've been dealing with top-level coaches at different points who all say, you have the ball, make use of it. And then you have half-backs just blasting shots from 100 yards time and time again. It's the sort of thing that's frustrated me with Tipperary at times too. But, you look at on the line, how poor a performance that was for Lohan. Even... the full forward line again around Peter Duggan, who is a very good player, but he's been in really, really bad form ever since the back of the Waterford game, and putting high ball down on top of him and Hugh Lawler. I mean,
that's what Kilkenny want.
beforehand you were going, if they do this, it'd be madness. And they go out and they do it for 70 minutes. They threw away a great chance of being in an All-Ireland semi-final that was really close. They could, if they were to play that again next week and do things the way they should do, they could get quite close. But you have to give credit to Kilkenny, very good. You have to give credit to Galway as well. They really put it up to Limerick. Maybe just didn't have the replacements to come on and make the extra difference. And maybe there was a small bit of Limerick are so used to winning tight games. Go back to 2018. They beat Kilkenny, I think, by a point. They won against Cork in extra time. They just rode out a late storm from Galway. They're used to it now at this stage. So there's a lot to be said for being a team out in the field that's used to getting through these close games. But, Shefflin's done a lot of great work in year one. And we have a good All-Ireland final to look forward to.
Yeah, look, it's as I've probably said it a few times in this show. I think it's the one matchup I wanted to see this year was Limerick and Kilkenny, and look, we're getting it, and we're getting it in the final. And look, it's brilliantly set up because Kilkenny are the team that Limerick probably been waiting for 3 years to come up against. And while you might think Limerick are showing a bit of vulnerability, like they won that game last weekend without Kyle Hay, or without
Cian Lynch and Peter Casey,
with Tom Morrissey and Gerard Hegarty being relatively quiet, with Seamus Flanagan as probably not as dominant as he was. But then, look, David Reaney comes on, wins them a game. Like, so look, to have that balance. Look, it'll be a great game. Like, I'm looking forward to it. Look, I was trying to think, we always hear this argument of Munster better than Leinster. I think Munster is more exciting than Leinster, but I think the Leinster Championship is a lot tougher. If you know, it's a lot more structured, it's a lot more physical, and I think it actually sets up a lot of teams better for the latter stages, where maybe there's a lot of space in the Munster Championship, high score and grand and stuff. But I think you're always battle hardened coming out of Leinster, so I think maybe Leinster is tougher, but maybe Munster is exciting, but it doesn't mean it's better.
Or maybe teams are coming out of Munster a bit more weary because they've had tough games. You come through, like if you look at it, Kilkenny got through to a Leinster final by beating Laois, Westmeath and Dublin.
Yeah.
So, contrast that to the other side of things. And then also, Munster teams have been dominating in the last number of years. So
but isn't it something going forward that we always complain about years that 4 and 5 week gap is a killer. I think if you going through the front door now is so important. Particularly you don't want that quarter final. You want those extra. You want that middle week of a training session where you can and then taper down. Where instead of, I think Clare and Galway probably didn't do an awful lot of training since their provincial finals, and maybe in the last, particularly for Galway, maybe in the last 5 minutes, maybe that came against them.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's it for Tippcast this week. We'll be back again next week as always. Great stuff, Shane. And don't forget to pick up a copy of the Nenagh Guardian. Cheers, Shane.
Cheers.